Oh, it's working. So, what's been interesting to me is that, and I know might be coming from a different perspective because I don't follow a whole lot of the QAnon stuff or any of the stuff that might be occurring on social media, and then a lot of other of that misleading stuff, by the mainstream, not by the mainstream, and all that. And it's interesting to me on how the goalposts have continued to shift, and the whole paradigm has basically continued to just be a very strange experiment. Um, it's obviously not predictable. That's been the biggest thing. But in a sense, with history, I guess you could say it's been predictable. So the left has gone full socialist, full Bolshevik, and even shades of, well, I know everybody's favorite subject on BitChute is how, how history got Hitler wrong, but in a lot of sense, that's what the left is acting again like an oppressive government regime, and definitely has shades of fascism into it. You can't deny it because if you deny it, then you don't know what you're talking about yet again. I mean, I see it everywhere, and I especially see it on Telegram that so many people are just uneducated about it, and they don't want to recognize it. They just want to blame Bolsheviks, or they want to blame the merchant tribe again and again and again, when at the end of it there's no real solution. Now, I've heard some arguments about the Knots Bowl stuff. Hmm. It's sustainable, but it's not long term sustainable. Once again, it'll just end in nihilism and statism and more corporate fascism. It won't go anywhere else other than that. And it's economically illiterate on top of it. And I'm not going full pro capitalist, full individualist mode, but there is a definite paradigm there, and there's a definite push and pull philosophy there. Um, Obviously, you're always going to have a hierarchy. You're always going to have people at the top, whether they be filthy rich or not. Um, this structure obviously hasn't sustained itself, and the right can blame socialism all it wants. We still live under some sense of it. Um, but there is no real definite solution to any of the problems. I mean, see, the thing is that, like, all the QAnon supporters were just going full Trump, 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 Trump. They were just on that train, and they were constantly riding it, and they wanted to ride it. And as Jay Dyer said, it was another limited hangout. I just call it a breadcrumb trail, or some kind of just psyop. I mean, there's another thing that was Bolshevik invented, and in a sense adopted by something like a 1930s Germany, or Stalinist Russia, or Mao China, or something like a Pol Pot regime, or even Castro. Castro did it in a sense. I mean, propaganda is pretty powerful. So when you have that all coalescing, and it going into a either radicalizing agent or de-radicalizing agent, it's just one of those things that it's the push and pull paradigm, and people on the left will just call us white supremacists, while on the right we're saying we're not until we're red in the face. It does, or until we're blue in the face. It doesn't matter anymore. And that's another thing where it's just there's no depth, there's no progress. So once again, the depth and the progress is lost, and going into something like a Knoxville narrative, it's there. I mean, is it something that should be aspired, or is it something that should be it's something that should be uh, we should strive towards? No, no, that's not a good answer either. I mean, if you want to ethnostate it, it's gonna be sustainable, but in the long term, mm, not really a good long term solution. Um, See, then there's all these long term solutions that just have more derivatives to it that aren't going to go anywhere. So the argument being made here is just it's the dialectic just become more racially tinged rather than what it's always been about is class, but but not in a Marxist sense. Because I know everybody once you start talking about class, everybody wants to jump on the socialist Marxist train and get all bent out of shape about that too. And that's something that's different as well, and it's different under capitalism. Um, but the pros of capitalism is the greatest wealth creator ever, ever in human history. Like there's nothing that could even compare to it. So once you get into that, then there's that whole dynamic of the working class, which is different under capitalism rather than any other social structure. Um, and Dr. Peterson said it best. In a sense, you can have a centralized structure of power, but under something like communism, socialism, whatever ism you want to pick that's outside of capitalism, those people in power are going to acquire and seize it more readily and be more overtly corrupt than those in a capitalistic sense. Because in a capitalistic sense, at least you have stopgaps, modes of government, people being able to regulate the corruption, both the proletariat and the bourgeoisie classes. You're gonna have a sense of checks and balances from both the ruling class, the aristocrat class, and us good old proles. So I mean, there's definitely things that are gonna transpire and be of some sustainability, but obviously the system currently that we have is imploding, and the narrative has imploded itself and in on itself for a while. Um, I mean, maybe 2016 was the last beacon of hope. Very, and I know people's opinions are definitely varied on that whole thing. Um, but outside of somebody like an internet conspiracy theorist, or outside outside of your regular MSM talking head, those are two extremes. I know. Those are two controlled extremes. I know. There's there's not a narrative where there's really a set of ideals that are going to align with somebody who's just a regular person, or somebody who's just trying to think of a solution to these problems. That there is none, because once you find a common sense solution, then you're called every name in the book for not recognizing some imaginary thing. So I don't know where it's going, but it sure is interesting in how it's all developed, especially now that we're in two weeks under a very faux pas administration, which I don't know. I mean, obviously previous administrations were kind of iffy too, but it's so blatantly obvious how corrupt and how foolish people have become. So take care, everybody. See you later.